They all wore matching red shirts, printed bold with "The Bellamy Bloodline, 2025. I stood there, the only one in a yellow blouse, clutching a pie I made from scratch. Like that would prove something. The shirts had been custom ordered. Everyone had one. Everyone but me. My Aunt Lorna walked toward me, loud and grinning, like she'd just heard the funniest joke. She looked me up and down and said, "Oh, you didn't get a shirt?" She leaned in, not whispering at all. "That's because you're not really one of us." The cousins behind her laughed, like it was some casual inside joke. Few even turned their backs after that. I smiled. Tight. The kind of smile that keeps tears from slipping out too early. My mom stood a few feet away, holding a plate of deviled eggs. She saw what happened, but didn't say anything, not even a hand on my shoulder. Just looked down and started adjusting the foil. I wondered what she told them about me. I walked past the tables and coolers, past a dozen folding chairs filled with people who used to pass me mashed potatoes at holiday dinners. I found an empty bench at the edge of the lawn, near the pecan trees. It was shady and quiet, and no one followed. I'd only been there 10 minutes, but I already felt the heat, not from the sun, but from the stares, the fake smiles, the way some people greeted me like I was a guest and not family. I watched the kids run around in their matching shirts, cousins tossing footballs, someone setting up a karaoke machine. Aunt Lorna was already snapping selfies with her favorite niece, Serena. Loud, proud, all Bellamy. That's when a black SUV pulled up. No music, no dust cloud, just smooth and deliberate. The driver stepped out, a man in a navy suit and sunglasses. He looked completely out of place, like he belonged at a courthouse, not a family barbecue. He didn't stop to ask for directions. He didn't glance around uncertainly. He walked straight toward me, like he already knew who I was. "Aria Bellamy?" he asked. "Yes," I said slowly. He opened the leather folder in his hand and said, "I'm Daniel Reeves, estate attorney for the late James Bellamy, my grandfather." By now, heads had turned. Conversations paused. People were watching. Aunt Lorna's laughter had stopped cold. He continued, "We've been trying to reach you. The estate can't be finalized until you sign. You're the sole heir." The entire reunion froze. I could hear the wind picking up. I could hear my heart pounding. Somewhere behind me, someone dropped a plate. I looked around. Every person who had laughed at me 15 minutes ago was now silent, confused, and just a little afraid. The man handed me the folder. Inside were documents, maps, signatures, my name, my grandfather's will. I looked up, met Lorna's eyes, and finally spoke. "I own the land this party is on." The day of the reunion started with a knot in my stomach. I stood in front of the mirror, flattening the collar of my blouse, trying to convince myself I wasn't nervous. The yellow was soft and summery, a color my grandfather used to say brought out the light in my eyes. It wasn't bold like the reds and blues I knew they'd be wearing, but I wanted to look like myself, not like I was begging to fit in. It had been 3 years since I last saw most of them. 3 years since Grandpa James's 70th birthday, when Aunt Lorna made a snide comment about some people only showing up when there's free food. I left early that night and hadn't been back since. Grandpa passed away a year after that. I didn't make it to the funeral. My mother called me from the parking lot after the service and said, "They asked where you were." I told them you were too busy. She didn't sound upset, just tired. She always seemed tired when it came to anything involving me and the rest of the Bellamys. Now here I was back in Georgia, driving down the long gravel road toward the property that held so much history. The Bellamy estate sat on 50 acres just outside of Albany, land that had been passed down for 3 generations. The house itself was worn but proud, with its white wraparound porch and green shutters that had faded under years of sun. Grandpa used to say the land had roots deeper than pride, and when I was younger, I believed that meant something. Now I wasn't so sure. As I parked near the tree line, I could already hear music and laughter. Folding tables were set up under a giant oak, covered with food and bright decorations. Red shirts moved everywhere, dozens of them, matching outfits with the family name plastered across every back and chest, like a badge of unity. I froze for a second, watching the swarm of shirts like I was observing something I wasn't meant to touch. I stepped out of the car, balancing a pecan pie in one hand and a gift bag in the other. The pie was my olive branch, something homemade to soften the sharp edges I knew I'd walk into. Grandpa's favorite. He used to sneak an extra slice and tell me not to tell Grandma. I made it the way he liked it. Less sugar, more nuts, no fancy crust. I told myself it mattered. I wanted it to matter. As I crossed the lawn, I caught a glimpse of my mother. She was standing near the drinks table, talking to my Uncle Troy. Her face lit up when she laughed, and for a second she looked younger than I remembered. She saw me and gave a quick wave but didn't walk over. That moment stayed with me longer than it should have. A mother seeing her daughter at a family reunion should do more than wave. I walked past groups of cousins, some I hadn't seen since childhood. Most barely looked at me. A few offered polite, tight smiles. Serena, Lorna's daughter, glanced at me over her sunglasses and turned back to her phone. The younger kids darted between the adults, playing tag and climbing the old tire swing. The place smelled like charcoal, watermelon, and honeysuckle. All of it familiar. All of it just slightly out of reach. I kept walking, searching for some neutral place to stand. I didn't know where I belonged. Every table had people clustered in groups, everyone laughing, clinking glasses, tossing inside jokes like frisbees. I didn't expect a parade, but I also didn't expect to feel like a stranger at my own family's gathering. Then I heard Lorna's voice rise above the rest, joking about something I couldn't quite catch. The tone was unmistakable, dismissive, performative, made for an audience. Her crowd laughed with her the same way they always had. It was like nothing had changed. I shifted the pie in my hands and told myself to breathe. I wasn't here for Lorna. I wasn't here to win anyone over. I was here because Grandpa would have wanted me to be. He once told me that being a Bellamy didn't mean being loud or proud. It meant showing up. So I did. And for a while, that was enough. Until it wasn't. I found a place to set the pie on the dessert table, next to a tray of store-bought cupcakes and a melting bowl of fruit salad. No one acknowledged it. No one asked who brought it. I stood there for a moment, listening to the music and watching everyone weave around me like I was invisible. Then I felt a tap on my shoulder. "Aria," Aunt Lorna said, smiling in that way that wasn't friendly. "Glad you finally made it." She didn't wait for a response. She reached down to the table and picked up one of the shirts, a crisp, bright red one with the Bellamy family name stretched across the front in gold lettering. "Oh, wait," she added, looking at the shirt, then at me. "We didn't make one for you. Thought you wouldn't come." A few of the cousins behind her stifled laughter. Serena covered her mouth and pretended to cough. I heard someone whisper. Awkward, like it was part of a comedy sketch. Lorna turned back to me, still holding the shirt, still smiling. "Besides, you're not really one of us, right?" It was a joke. At least that's how she framed it. But it was loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, and no one corrected her. No one said a word. My cheeks burned, but I held the smile. Not the kind that means you're okay, but the kind that buys you a second to breathe without breaking. I looked at my mother. She was about 10 feet away, watching but doing nothing. She gave a small, unsure smile, then looked away. That hurt more than Lorna's words. I wanted to leave. Right then, I wanted to turn around, get in my car, and pretend I had never come. But I thought of Grandpa again, and how he used to hold my hand at these gatherings when I was younger. How he used to whisper jokes in my ear when I looked overwhelmed. He would tell me I was the quiet heart of the Bellamy family, that I saw what others missed. I swallowed my pride and walked toward the back lawn, away from the noise, the cameras, the line dancing. I sat alone at an empty picnic table near the trees, where the laughter didn't feel as sharp. From there, I watched them pass around drinks, pose for group photos, raise plastic cups and toasts. They were celebrating themselves, loud and certain, wrapped in the same red uniform that now felt more like armor than fashion. The sun hung high, and sweat gathered at the base of my neck, but I didn't move. I didn't eat. I didn't speak. I just watched and waited. At one point, Serena walked past me, holding a beer. She didn't say anything, but she gave me that look. The kind teenage girls give each other in high school hallways like they're daring you to take up space you're not supposed to claim. She rejoined her circle and whispered something. They laughed. They always laughed. The thing about exclusion is it doesn't always come with screaming or slammed doors. Sometimes it's quiet, a look, a silence, an extra shirt that never got made, and when it's done by people who share your blood, it cuts deeper than most things ever could. Uncle Troy gave me a nod from across the yard, the kind of nod that says, "I see you, but I'm not getting involved." It was always like that. Lorna's voice was the only one that carried weight in that household. Danielle, my mother, stayed by the dessert table, nervously rearranging plates that didn't need rearranging. Then came the family photo, the big one. Every reunion ended with it. They began gathering near the swing set, calling out names, arranging rows. Someone asked, "Where's Aria?" Someone else answered, "She's not in it this year." No one corrected them. They took the photo. I watched from my seat. I saw the flash go off. I saw the smiles. I saw the gap where I would have stood. The pie I brought sat untouched. A fly circled it once, then left. I folded my hands in my lap and looked out at the estate Grandpa built with his own hands. I traced the line of the oak trees with my eyes. I imagined his voice, soft but certain, saying, "Let them laugh. The land knows who you are." I didn't cry. I waited. And then the black SUV arrived. I sat under the pecan tree, back straight, hands folded in my lap, and watched the celebration carry on without me. Children shrieked with joy as they ran between folding chairs. Uncles told stories they'd told 100 times. The music changed from upbeat to something slow and familiar, and people swayed in loose circles with plastic cups in hand. It should have hurt more, but I had already felt it all. The sting of being ignored. The quiet rejection dressed up as a joke. The polite indifference from my mother. The silence from the rest. At some point, pain gives way to clarity. I didn't belong, not because of something I lacked, but because they needed me not to belong. That was the role I had been assigned. Still, I stayed. I sat and I watched. Not because I wanted to punish myself, but because leaving would have felt like surrender, and I was done surrendering. From a distance, I saw Aunt Lorna gather people for another round of photos. She looked radiant, holding her plastic cup like a queen with a goblet, surrounded by those who fed her pride. Her husband Troy stood beside her, half smiling, eyes tired. Serena posed in front, flipping her hair and adjusting her stance like someone rehearsed to be adored. Lorna called out my mother's name and motioned her over. Danielle looked my way for half a second, then joined them without hesitation. I knew that look. It said, "It's easier this way." Easier not to defend me. Easier not to be the one who caused waves. That had always been her way. My hand reached for the pie, untouched since I placed it down. I picked it up and placed it gently into the trunk of my car. I wasn't angry. I just didn't want to leave anything behind. Then I heard the tires. A smooth roll of rubber against gravel. Too quiet to be any of the family trucks or pickups parked out front. I turned my head and saw a black SUV pull up just beyond the main clearing. Clean, sleek, with tinted windows and no dust trail behind it. The music didn't stop, but people began to notice. Conversations dipped. Heads turned. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out in a navy blue suit, crisp and unwrinkled despite the heat. He wore sunglasses and his stride was purposeful, like he was heading toward a courtroom instead of a picnic. The crowd parted slightly as he walked through. Not speaking, not asking questions. It was like they all felt the shift in air before he said a single word. He didn't glance around searching for someone. He moved like he already knew exactly who he was looking for. He stopped in front of me and removed his sunglasses. "Miss Aria Bellamy?" he asked. "Yes," I answered, rising from the bench. He reached into the leather folder under his arm and opened it. "My name is Daniel Reeves. I'm the estate attorney for the late James Bellamy." Every sound behind him softened. The kids stopped running. Even the music from the Bluetooth speaker seemed to drift into the background. He continued, his voice professional but not cold. "We've been trying to reach you regarding the final details of your grandfather's estate. The property and all assets associated with it were left solely in your name. You are the primary and only heir." He held out the folder. Inside were documents I had never seen but instantly understood. Maps, deeds, letters with my name typed cleanly at the top. Grandpa James's signature, written with a pen I remember seeing him use on the porch. It was all real. Behind him, the silence was total. Aunt Lorna's face had dropped from confident to confused. Uncle Troy put his hands in his pockets. Serena stared openly, her mouth slightly open. My mother took a step forward and stopped. I didn't say anything yet. I looked at the papers again. Then I turned slightly to the crowd and felt their eyes, not with fear or anger, but with the heavy weight of sudden, irreversible recognition. I looked up at Daniel Reeves and nodded. "Thank you," I said. "I'll review everything." He gave me a small, respectful smile. "If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Everything is in order. This land, the house, all of it, belongs to you now." As he walked back toward his car, I stood taller. The air felt lighter. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't made a scene. But the ground had shifted. They all knew it. I held the folder in both hands. The pages inside carried the weight of every year I spent sitting at the edge of this family, watching them pull closer to each other while pushing me away. But now, no one spoke. No one laughed. No one had anything clever to say. Aunt Lorna stepped forward, her smile gone. Her tone clipped. "There must be some mistake," she said. "James wouldn't do that. He wouldn't leave it all to her." Daniel Reeves was halfway to his SUV but turned briefly. "There's no mistake. Everything was filed, witnessed, and notarized. He made the decision over a year before he passed. It's all there in writing." Lorna turned to my mother. "Danielle, what is this? Why didn't you say anything?" My mother blinked like she had just come out of a trance. "I didn't know. I haven't spoken to the lawyer. I thought James left everything to the family." A few people started whispering. Serena looked around, clearly unsure of where she was supposed to stand now that the ground had shifted. Uncle Troy moved next to Lorna, placing a hand on her back like he was steadying her, or maybe himself. I stepped forward. Not far. Just enough. "My grandfather did leave it to the family," I said. "I am the family, whether any of you liked it or not." My voice wasn't raised, but it carried. People turned toward me, finally looking at me, not through me. "For years, I sat at your tables, brought food to your gatherings, smiled when you joked at my expense. And I let it happen because I thought maybe one day I'd earn your respect, that if I was quiet enough, helpful enough, grateful enough, you'd make room for me. But Grandpa saw what you wouldn't." Lorna stepped forward again, pointing at the folder in my hands. "You think this makes you better than us?" "No," I said. "It makes me responsible. It makes me the one who has to decide what happens next." They stared at me like they were waiting for a punishment, like I might throw them out, humiliate them, take back every smile I ever forced out of politeness. But that wasn't what I came for. "I'm not here for revenge," I continued. "I'm here because Grandpa wanted someone to protect this land. He trusted me to do it." A boy from one of the younger families wandered over and tugged at his mother's shirt. She pulled him closer. The kids didn't understand the shift, but they could feel it. The adults understood too well. Cousin Marcus finally spoke. "So, like, you could actually make us leave?" "I could," I said. "Every square inch of this place is legally mine. The house, the fields, the trees, even the well water. I could call the sheriff and end this right now, but I won't." He blinked. "Why not?" "Because Grandpa wouldn't want that. He believed in second chances. He believed family was more than blood. It was about how you showed up, and he knew I would do this the right way." No one cheered. No one clapped. It wasn't that kind of moment. But the silence was different now. It wasn't the silence of exclusion or dismissal. It was the silence of realization. I turned slowly and looked out at the estate. His estate, now mine. The pecan trees swayed in the wind. The house stood proud and still. For the first time, I felt the roots underneath me, steady and deep. "You can finish your reunion," I said. "I'm not here to ruin it. Just clean up when you're done. You're on my lawn." I walked back toward the tree line where my car was parked. I didn't rush. I didn't look back to see their reactions. I didn't need to. When I opened the car door, I glanced at the pie in the back seat, still intact, still untouched. I smiled for real this time, picked it up, and walked toward the front porch of the house. There, alone on the steps, I sat down and took a bite of the pie I made for a family that had never really made room for me. But now, they would have to. I stayed on the porch long after the music faded. The sun was beginning to drop behind the trees, casting long shadows across the field. Most of the family had left by then. A few people lingered near their cars, talking in low voices, stealing glances at the house like it belonged to a ghost they never expected to see again. My mother walked up the steps. She didn't speak right away. She sat beside me on the top stair, smoothing out the hem of her dress like she needed something to do with her hands. "I didn't know," she said finally. "About the will." I nodded. "I believe you." She looked straight ahead at the driveway, her voice quiet. "He must have done it after we argued about your place in the family. I told him not to cause waves. I thought I was protecting you. I thought if I told you to keep your head down, they'd leave you alone." I looked over at her, not angry, just tired. "That's not protection. That's surrender." She swallowed hard, blinking away something she didn't let fall. "I see that now." For a long time, we sat there, the two of us, surrounded by the house he built and the land he worked. She didn't apologize. Not in the way I used to wish for, but she didn't leave either, and that, maybe, was something. Eventually, she stood and walked back to her car. I didn't watch her drive away. The sun kept falling and the cicadas started humming. The pie sat beside me, half-eaten. I took another bite, letting the taste of pecans and vanilla settle on my tongue. I hadn't eaten all day. I hadn't realized how hungry I was, not just for food, but for something real, something that belonged to me. I thought about Grandpa James, about how he used to bring me out here in the early mornings to walk the property line. He'd tell me how each tree had a story, how each patch of land held memory. I didn't understand then why he shared it all with me, why he told me things he never told anyone else. Now I did. He saw what they refused to see. He saw worth where others only saw difference. He didn't need me to prove myself. He knew who I was, even when I didn't. And that was the lesson. Belonging isn't about being accepted by the loudest voices in the room. It's not about matching shirts or shared last names. It's about knowing your value, even when others try to shrink it. It's about standing still when the ground moves under you and saying, without apology, "I am enough." They laughed at me. They excluded me. They pointed and whispered and wrote me off, but they didn't break me. I didn't fight them. I didn't argue or shout. I didn't throw them out. I stood still, and the truth found its way to me. I walked back into the house, slow and steady. The air inside smelled like wood and thyme. Dust floated in the golden light through the windows. Everything was still where he left it, his hat on the hook, his boots by the door, the picture of me as a child on the mantel, the one where I was missing my front teeth and smiling like I didn't know yet that the world could be cruel. I placed the folder on the kitchen table. It looked right there, beside the old salt shaker and a stack of unopened mail. Then I walked outside again and stood on the porch. The land stretched out before me, quiet and proud. I took a breath and felt the weight of every step that brought me here. Not just today, but every day I spent waiting for someone to choose me. I didn't need to be chosen. I had already arrived. Thank you for watching. If this story spoke to you, if you've ever been underestimated, left out, or made to feel like you didn't belong, know this. Your value isn't determined by who acknowledges it. It's yours. It always has been. And if you felt something real while listening, I hope you'll take a second to support this channel. Like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and leave a comment. I read them all, and your stories, your strength, your truth, they matter here. Subscribe for more powerful, real-life stories that remind us we're never as alone as we think. Until next time, take care of yourself, and never forget what you're worth.